What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turn on the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Zantz Russo. Russo, it's been a little bit. I know you did a show with Joe a couple weeks back. I know we've been a little bit MIA, but honestly, with this team, I'm just so over everything. How are you feeling? Bye week's over, but we're no short of any drama with this franchise.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I mean, it's I think you termed it best. It was probably, I don't know, fairly early on this season where you're just like it's apathy at this point. And I think
Mm-hmm.
for a long time we've talked about, like, obviously we probably know more than the average football fan, but where we set ourselves apart is the passion in which we have for this team. And right now, like, that's what it feels like. It feels like you're almost indifferent to what they're going to do and what they've done, because now we've seen everything, right? You've seen everything in this drought, from experienced head coaches to rookie head coaches to offensive minds to defensive minds. You've seen everything from a GM standpoint. You've seen a cap guy. You've seen a scout guy. You've seen it all. You've seen experienced quarterbacks. You've seen failed rookie quarterback attempts. Like, we've been through it. So it just feels like the level of excitement that we would normally have at a changeover just isn't there. And it makes you just lose faith and not really believe. And that's kind of the depressing part about it all, is it's like, okay, well, whoever they bring in, like, we're just going to have this believe it when we see it mentality.
Yep.
And it takes the fun out of the free agency process and the draft process and training camp and even early season success, because we've seen that in 2022 and that faltered down the stretch. Like, all of this, it's where we just, like I said, we have this kind of believe it when we see it mentality. And unfortunately, until they prove us otherwise, it really doesn't matter. And I'm not going to get excited, or I'm not going to be upset, because I just want to see them win. And I really don't care anymore. And in my 39 years of fandom, like, this is, I really, to say it best, like, I thought 2023 was rock bottom, and then this year happened. And I never in a million years imagined it would get this low. And here we are. And it is without a doubt, unequivocally, the worst fan year I've ever experienced.
It's so funny because you could say that and it could always get worse, because
It could always get worse.
I refuse to officially coin this rock bottom. I mean, I guess for right now it's rock bottom, because they've proven that there's no stopping of how low it can go based on expectation. I would say, though, for now it's probably rock bottom, because at this point the expectations are probably going to be shifted and be way lower for 2025. I mean, we have no idea what they're going to do, who's going to be the quarterback, who's going to be the coach, GM. It's just been truly, like, laughable at this point. And the sad thing is, all these people, you see it all over, social media, you see it in, different, publications, all the criticisms warranted. I mean, like, I'm not gonna, I mean, you could pick and choose and what you think is, fair and unfair, but, like, why should we even give them any sort of praise? They don't deserve anything at this point. And I'm just so tired of the bullshit. Excuse my French. I know we try not to curse too much on the show, but, like, you're seeing all the leaks and you're seeing all the nonsense, the drama. It's a joke. It's like they're an unserious organization from top down. And it's just, you thought it would be better with Aaron Rodgers. It is not. And I'm, like, so done with the experiment. It is what it is. It didn't work. I'm glad they took the chance and it failed. I feel like people were like, it's catastrophic that it didn't work. I'm like, why? They're no different than what they were before he got here. It's the same shit. So I want to talk about Joe Douglas, because we haven't spoken. I know I wrote a little piece for the Badlands feed. Thank you to anyone who read and enjoyed. I got some, good feedback from some people that they enjoyed it. It felt like it was just like a nice cleanse of everything. But it's truly hilarious that there's still people out there that are defending this guy. People in my mentions, I'm seeing people who seem to be buddies with him in the media and whatever. I do want to say that a lot of people have been giving, Zach a lot of shit for, like, how he portrayed everything that's been going on with Douglas, prior to him getting fired. He wasn't justifying him, not getting a fair shake. What he was saying is it's just hard to work for Woody, which I don't think that's news. And if you pay attention to see it as close as we do, it's been like this for a long time. But 6 years, $20 million, the amount of picks, the amount of money he was given to spend in free agency, like, come on, let's just stop glazing this guy. I mean, like, never had a winning season, never came close to the playoffs, had two major busts in Becton and Wilson, barely had any free agent hits, minus, like, DJ Reed, and I guess a couple waiver claims like a JFM and a Quincy Williams, but, like, in a vacuum, he doesn't know how to build a team. I don't care if you nail some picks and you get some good players. That's not how you build a winning organization. Like, a winning team is so much more than just the players. It's the coaching staff. It's the front office. It's everyone who's in the football operation. And they were unable to accomplish that in the Joe Douglas era. Like, we've talked about Robert Saleh many times, and he was bad too. Guess who hired him? Joe Douglas. It's just, I don't want to pile on the guy any more than he's already been piled on by this fan base. But, like, I'm curious your thoughts. I just think it's so ridiculous that people thought that this guy deserved more time. Like, 6 years in football is a long ass time.
Yeah, it's a lifetime. And honestly, I think we've been, you and I and Badlands on a broader scale have been fair and objective about Joe Douglas. And at the end of the day, like, the only argument you need is that he was 30-64 as a GM. And that's it. And that's simply not good enough. And did he make some good picks? Yes, absolutely. Did he make some bad picks? Yes, absolutely. He inherited a quarterback. He inherited a coach. The coach was part of the reason, a big reason as to why he was here in the first place. He got to handpick 2 new quarterbacks and handpick 1 new head coach, and neither worked. And in his 5.5 years of being a GM, he didn't sniff the playoffs once. Nope. And that's just, it's plain and simple. And that's it. I mean, we can argue like him as a talent evaluator or, the draft picks, all that stuff, like whatever at this point, like how hard it is to work for Woody. You know what? There's a GM in Mike Tannenbaum and a head coach in Rex Ryan that say the opposite. So at the end of the day, like, he was given the keys to the franchise. He was let do whatever he needed to do to make this work. And ultimately it didn't work and he failed to build a winner. And at the end of the day, 5.5 years to not sniff the playoffs, to not turn this into a winning team. It was the end of the road. And ultimately, whether we agree with it or disagree with it, it happened, and we have to move on and press forward. And there's nothing that Joe Douglas did or didn't do that gives anyone any confidence that he should pick the next head coach and or next quarterback of this franchise. Correct. And that's just what it is. You can't be 30-64. It's like Matt Millen territory. It's just, you can't get there. And at Bruce the end of the day, that's what it is. So it was time to move on. They were doing him a favor. Obviously, there's reports that he's happier now and a weight was lifted off his shoulders. So, there we are. But he wasn't going to make it to the end of the season. As soon as Saleh was fired, he was a dead man walking anyway. So you did him a favor. You let him go at the bye week, and we move on and we press forward.
Yeah, like the fact that you're seeing him like, oh, he's relieved. He was fishing down the Jersey Shore. What a pathetic loser. Like, what? You had an amazing job, like literally a job that people dream to have who work in the NFL, even people who don't work in the NFL. You got paid so much money and it's a relief. You don't have to work for Woody Johnson. Like, call me crazy, but like, it's such loser mentality and the constant, excuse making. We didn't get a fair shot. Like, get over it. You chose to work here. You took the contract that was given to you. You didn't get the job done. It's that simple. Like, I don't need to go into all the moves. I know we did a little bit of that already, but I'm just over this. And like, it's time to rip the Band-Aid off. It's time to move forward. And I don't trust them, like you said, to make the right decision. I expect them not to make the right decision. I mean, we could talk a little bit about, Mr. T and Rick Spielman being involved as consultants to hire the next general manager. I mean, like, how do you feel about that? I'm curious.
It's hard to encapsulate my feelings. So I guess the best way I would put it is I am happy at the thought that they're doing it and that they're leaving it to quote unquote football people. I'm happy that they're soliciting outside advice because they realize that they need football people to help them make this decision. Mm-hmm. Rick Spielman, I am happy about. Mike Tannenbaum, as a GM for 6 years and with this franchise, for a longer time. I think he came in 97. So he was there from 97 to 2012. I mean, that's saying something. And regardless of his takes on ESPN, like, I still think that Mike Tannenbaum, obviously, like, he has value. So I don't know, like, I think I kind of land on the fence when it comes to Mike T. But ultimately, I think I'm happy with the decision that they are seeking outside advice and they're not going to solely rely on Woody and Christopher to kind of, with Chaim Yelhai kind of, in their ear chirping, making this decision. I'm happy about that. But like, I go back to my original point. It's still going to be like, believe it when we see it. I mean, I was in the fence, like, who was it? Charlie Casserly and Ron Wolf back in 2015 when they hired Mike McCagnon. And at the time, you're like, okay, well, they're seeking outside advice. Like, this could be a good thing. It was better than Corn Ferry. But I think with the Jets in general, like, we have to rid ourselves of that feeling of being better than the predecessor, better than the previous.
Please.
Because all they're doing is giving us the lowest bar to clear. Robert Saleh is better than Adam Gase. It's still not good enough. And honestly, it's arguable to this point, right? So like, it's kind of there's just those things where is it good for an NFL franchise? Like, is it good for a normal NFL franchise? And right now, that's up in the air. I'm glad they're seeking outside advice, but it's still kind of this wait and see approach. But the good thing that I'll hang my Mike T hat on is he's a Parcells disciple, and that's a proven formula, and it has been for a while in the NFL. So that's what I'll continue to go back to. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Like, what are you thinking on this?
I mean, like you said at the top, like, I'm happy that they're just not, making the decision on their own. I think that they've proven that they can't do that. They're not adults. I've been saying this a lot. They are literally children running this football team. And it's just with all the stupid things between like the helicopter flying in and, Woody suggesting to bench Rodgers after the Bronco game, which I think is getting a little bit out of context. I think it might have been like he thought he was hurt, but like whatever it is. Telling him to bench Tony Adams. They don't know what the hell they're doing. So, yes, getting outside help is important. Obviously, Tannenbaum has ties to this organization. He's the best GM of my lifetime, not counting Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells obviously was de facto GM, but in terms of someone who had the job that wasn't the coach, yeah, easily the best GM I've seen in my life with this organization. A lot of good draft picks. I know there's been like rumors about potentially Mangini being involved somehow. I think if you put Mangini in the front office, I think it's a great idea. I don't want him coaching the team. He's been out of it for so long, but I think he has a good eye for talent. And I think, same thing, Parcells disciple as well. But I think it's good that there's somebody who understands, this organization. I mean, it's people like, the Corn Ferries and the Charlie Casterys of the world. They don't understand the Jets. They don't. Like, they understand football, but they don't understand what it takes to be in New York. And I think having somebody that truly understands, the demeanor and really what's expected and what this job will be like for whoever they suggest to be hired is important. I think, it's whatever you're looking for. Rick Spielman, respected guy in football. I mean, he helped get Washington get Adam Peters, who's clearly doing a pretty good job. I know that they've been reeling a bit with Jaden Daniels, taking a step back. But overall, I think Dan Quinn is a respected football guy, and it seems like they're headed in the right direction, given they're a lot like us as a franchise. I think us, the Bears, and the Browns. I feel like Detroit was in there, but they're really not anymore because they're, a juggernaut, for lack of a better phrase. But I'm happy with it. I mean, where we go with this is really what matters more. It's like they could bring in the best consultant in the world. They could bring in Bill Parcells for all I care, and he could still hire the wrong person. So it's really about what's the result of these two guys. What are they going to do?
Yeah, I think, I think this kind of rules out the potential for like a president of football operations too. It seems like anyways, right? And that's something that was a rather exciting opportunity. I don't think that it was going to be like a Pete Carroll. I don't know if he would really come back here, but that was kind of
it's being floated out there.
It was floated. And same with Curtis Martin. I know Curtis Martin is wanting to get into NFL ownership. Like, that could have been a nice thing too. I think Curtis Martin, obviously another Parcells disciple, well-respected guy in the football community. But ultimately, again, we're going to have to see how this thing plays out. I think it's a step in the right direction. We get a comment here from KJH. Like, Mike T isn't the GM, Steve. He and his team at 33rd have hundreds of connections. And with Spielman, we'll be able to find someone who's not only a good GM and head coach, but also a fit for a unique New York market and Jets team. Yeah, I mean, no one's suggesting that Mike T is going to be the GM. I think that's obvious. I mean, but it's still up for debate as to how and what this search will look like and who ultimately they pick as a GM. I think there's a lot of things that factor in here, but I think ultimately we'll see how big of a step it is. But it is a step in the right direction for them to acknowledge they need outside help. They get respected guys like Mike T and Rick Spielman to kind of lead this charge and this effort, and we'll see where it goes and where it shakes out.
Yeah. I mean, look, we'll see in a couple of months what this is going to actually net out to being. We have no idea. I feel like we're not going to actually know who the next GM, coach, whatever, president of football operations, who those people will be probably until middle of January. I feel like you'll probably get a GM announcement earlier than you'd expect. There's a possibility they hire someone, at least at the president of football operations perspective, before the end of the season. Like, if they hired Pete Carroll in that role, he could literally do it tomorrow if they wanted. But I think it's going to be, wide net, long process, not making sure no stone goes unturned. That whole all the buzz phrases and words you can imagine when it comes to looking for new people to work for your football team. I want to get into the Rodgers stuff because it's obviously gone as bad as it possibly could. I think it's him, but also some of the situation from a coaching perspective. I think that some of the talent maybe isn't as good as we expected. I'm curious what you think. Like, do you think that they're actually going to, put him on IR? I mean, it seems like he's actually really hurt and he's refusing to get MRIs because if he sees that, he's not going to play. Like, I'm not really sure what to believe. I mean, he's definitely hurt. He can't move. He hasn't been able to move really since that Patriot game in September. But what do you think about this right now?
Yeah, it's hard to know. There's so much noise and reporting going on with the Jets. It's really hard to know what to believe. I just have a hard time believing that they would actually like bench him or find some creative way to get him on IR. I don't think he'd want that. I don't think knowing his pride, I don't think he'd want to go out like that. My feelings on it, though, I mean, maybe you see what you got in Tyrod. I have no idea. See if Tyrod can be the bridge quarterback. Really, I don't know. I mean, this season has been such a whirlwind and such a roller coaster, but Aaron Rodgers was supposed to come in and just fix everything with this franchise. He was supposed to cover up all these holes and make everything go away because he was Aaron Rodgers. He's failed to do that, right? But that's a lot to put on one person, one quarterback, like even for a Hall of Famer and probably a top 5 quarterback of all time. I think like Aaron Rodgers to this point hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been what we expected either. Like his stats are decent. He's not throwing the ball downfield. That's probably the one biggest
so frustrating
problem, right, that we've had with him. It's clear, like you said, that he's not healthy right now. But has he been terrible? No. I mean, we've been in games more often than not. Now, you dig deeper into that. Like he's had the ball in his hands with a chance to win. Let's see. Broncos game, Vikings game, Pats game. Well, Pats game, I think that was more on the defense, but exactly. I mentioned the Bills game, and then obviously, the Colts game got away from us with the defense too. But like those are the reasons that you brought Aaron Rodgers in, was to be able to win those games, and he has failed to do that with the ball in his hands. So I don't know, man. The jury's out. I don't know how I feel. I don't see. I can't expect or not expect anything because it just seems like the season is so crazy. But I don't foresee any way that like unless he's really like further injured, I don't see how they bench him and go away from him. What do you think? And I don't know what to believe anymore at this point. Like that's the other part about this whole thing.
I would say I think that it's going to get to a point if he keeps getting hit or whatever it may be. Like it's just he's going to get hit even if the offensive line's playing well. There's going to be moments where he gets hit even if it's not a sack. I think it might like the circumstances might dictate him not playing anymore. I don't think he'll ever willingly be like, I want to go on IR or them just doing that. Because I think they understand where they are right now. It's like the best case scenario if they want out, which they're not doing. I'm not suggesting that, is they go 9-8. That's not going to happen. The schedule is too tough. They got to play Miami twice. They got to play Seattle, Rams. I'm trying to think who
Buffalo
else. Buffalo again, Jacksonville, and am I missing anybody? I think
nope. You got it.
Nope. I think I got it right. We were going full Mike and Mad Dog talking about the schedule. I think they will win some games. I've been saying that this season it just smells of 6-11. In the old days, like 6-10 before the extra game. They're gonna win in games. Like they won the Texans game, although that game doesn't look as impressive now to seeing the Titans going into Houston and winning yesterday. But they still won that game. They still won it pretty decisively for the most part. They dominated that game. But I think defensively they're so bad. That's really where a lot of the issues lie. I think the defense is just putting the offense in such terrible spots, which it feels like it's the complete opposite of what it's been the last 3 years prior to Rodgers being the actual quarterback, not the quarterback for snaps. But I think he'll end up playing as long as he physically can, which who knows? That could be 2 more games. That could be maybe the rest of the year. I feel like we'll get probably into late December and Tyrod Taylor is playing. Maybe even Adrian Martinez. I don't know. But I don't think he's going to finish the season as a quarterback. It's just the Jets never have a quarterback finish the entire season from start to finish. It's been since Geno Smith in 2013. It's been a long time. So I don't think it's happening anytime soon.
Yeah, and I think the interesting question is going to be obviously what happens next year. I think there's an argument that could be made that Rodgers would be a good bridge quarterback to whoever you draft or whatever next step that you do have. there's another argument that Tyrod Taylor is that guy. And I know there's a lot of cap savings and, you save money if you cut him after a post June 1st cut in 25 as opposed to 26. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. You think about, I think about like head coaches that would excite me, GM candidates that excite me, but really like I want a proven head coach. So if you think of a guy like Vrabel, like that's really the top name I think that would excite me here. So it would be enticing, I think, for a guy like Vrabel to come in with a chance to compete in year one with a guy like Aaron Rodgers and to then rebuild after that and tailor this how he wants to with a young guy that they draft. Like that seems like that would be a carrot to dangle in front of someone like Vrabel and get that longevity. That's kind of where my mind goes. So I don't know. Again, there's so much that's up in the air right now. It's really going to be very interesting to see. But at the end of the day, too, like you got Tyrod under contract next year. He could also be the perfect bridge quarterback. So there's so many different things. I think one thing that we can agree on is that there is a good young core of players here that you can build around. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Olu Fashanu, AVT, John Simpson's going to be here. You got to re-sign Morgan Moses. Sauce is a shell of himself, but you got to hope and believe that he'll revert back to form. Quinnen Williams is good. Quincy Williams is good. Like there's a core here, and we know that it doesn't take years to turn it around in the NFL. Like look at the Vikings, right? Like they're doing it again. Like they had a down year last year after Kirk Cousins got hurt, and they're 9-2 right now. So 10-2, like, so you have to be able to turn it around in less time than 5 years. And I think you have a good young core of players. And if you get someone that has done it, proven they've done it, that's an adult in the room, that's a leader of men, then maybe it can be done. We'll see.
I'll give you a perfect example of everyone who's saying that Joe Douglas didn't get enough time. The Cardinals, they drafted Kyler Murray in 2019. That was the first year Joe Douglas was here. And that was, he obviously wasn't part of the draft of free agency, but the point is they were basically a rebuilding team in 2019. They were like frisky. I think they won like 6 games or 5, whatever it was. And then they make the playoffs, or I'm sorry, they got off to a good start in 2020, but they started becoming a winning team like immediately in year 2 with Cliff. And then 2021, I know it was definitely like I think it was a first round exit. They lost to the Rams in the playoffs. And then 2022, the wheels fell off. But think about this. Last year, they essentially were a team that everyone thought was tanking. And Kyler missed basically, I would say, at least half the season, if not longer. And they showed signs of progress towards the end. And now they're right in the mix for the AFC West. I know they lost yesterday, but they could easily win that division. So the point is that they've essentially gone through 2 different rebuilds in the same time the Jets have had Joe Douglas. And the Jets have not even gotten close. So that's why I can't listen to anyone who says, Joe Douglas didn't get a fair shot. He shouldn't have got fired. I'm like, no, 6 years is far enough. We didn't need that. But in terms of Rodgers, I think given where we are and given with just how he looks, I want a clean break. I don't think he needs to be here in 2025, especially if that's going to hinder the candidates that we, have potential interest in the job. So if that's limiting your pool, you got to cut ties. I think just cut him, let him do whatever he wants. Even if that means him going somewhere else and spiting us, I don't think he wants to keep playing. Like his body is not going to be able to bounce back anymore. He's getting older. He's 41 in like a week. I would be very surprised if he wanted to continue playing elsewhere. I think it's either here or nowhere. And that was what Peter Schrager said last week. I think in terms of addressing the quarterback position, I think just Tyrod, Travis, maybe another veteran or mid-round quarterback. I wouldn't take anyone in the first round. I mean, people like Shadur or Cam Ward, I don't know if those guys can make it here. I think they're 2 guys that require, a good offensive coaching staff, and I don't trust us to put one together. I mean, this all could be this. I could feel differently in about 3 months' time. But my point is that I want them to kind of punt on next year. And when I say that, it means not completely tank. I think just transition year, run with the guys you have at quarterback. If you sign someone, another veteran, that's fine, but have eyes on the 2026 class. It's just, I don't really think that this team should try this. We got to win next year. It's just not working. It failed, and it's time to move on from some of these guys. It's just get rid of some of the bad eggs, because there's plenty of bad eggs in this locker room. Because if there wasn't, they wouldn't be in the situation that they're in right now. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would. And I think you're right. I get what you're saying about next year as well. I think There's a lot of different things to consider, though, and I think it starts with the GM candidate that you get and the head coach that you get, and then what their view is. But I think, to your point, you can be kind of do this competitive rebuild and be in the mix in 2025, and then you never know. And I'm not going to pretend to be Connor Rodgers or any draft expert. I don't know enough about these quarterback prospects. I know that Connor really likes Cam Ward, so that excites me. I'm not crazy about Shedeur Sanders or really anyone else like Milroe or anyone like that. But again, I'm not, listen,
I like Quinn Ewers, but I wouldn't take him in the first round. I like him.
And like I was in the anybody but Josh Allen camp, so I'll forever.
What do we know, right?
I'll forever be wrong and have that one on my record. Like,
yeah, I like Josh Rosen. I admit it.
Yeah,
if I was wrong. It's fine.
See,
good in college.
Exactly, and we were all dead wrong. Like everyone was. I know most of Jets fans were all about Sam Darnold and not about Josh Allen at all. So it's one of those things. It's a crapshoot, and the 2021 class was supposed to be incredible, and look at how that's shaken out right now. So, I really, I get what you're saying, and I feel like whatever happens, I just want them to be competitive next year, and I'm to the point where I really don't care what happens. I just want to see winning football, and I'm losing my attachment to players specifically outside of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. You guys are always going to stay with me, but I just want to see a winning program, and I just want to see them get into the mix in December. And we've been saying that for far too long. And
be in the hunt graphic, my friend. That's all we want, man.
We had it in the time of this show. Maybe we're the curse, honestly, because in the time of this show, we were there for a little bit in 2022, and then it all fell apart. But I don't know. I want to go back to and ask you, Steven, like, what are the head coach candidates that would really excite you? Like, is there anybody out there right now that would really get you and make you kind of feel the way that we're talking about, like that lost feeling, the feeling of excitement, and like, there is some energy back there?
I mean, Vrabel is certainly somebody I really like and would want. I don't think he'd come here. I think it's partially, I just don't think he'd want to work for Woody Johnson. Plus, he has ties to Belichick, and Belichick would be like, don't take that job. He'd be great. A guy I'd really like, even though I don't really want defense, is Flores. I think Flores got a raw deal Miami, and I get it. He wasn't great with an offensive staff, but like those teams played for him. And it seems like our players have not been playing. They have not been playing for their coaches. I mean, I love Elbrick as a defensive coordinator. He seems like a genuinely good dude, but he just seems in over his head, and whatever he's doing is not working. Flores always got the most out of the talent on the roster. Think about that first year when everyone thought they were trying to lose every game to get Tua, and they ended up being really frisky in the end. And honestly, the Jets stole a game from them. Remember that pass interference when it was like reviewable, whatever? Yeah. They should have had that game. And then they went into New England and won that game that basically ended the Tom Brady era because they didn't have home field in the first round. So I think maybe they didn't have a first round bye. I think they did have home field, but they lost to the Titans. Yep. But my point is that those are two guys. I mean, if they did Pete Carroll, even though I feel like he would make more sense in an advisory role in the front office at this point, given his age, I'd love that. I mean, we've been making jokes about this, I feel like, for 2 months, but like if Rex got hired, I would have no choice but to be excited. I'm not advocating for it, nor am I wanting it, but like he's brought me a lot of joy as a fan. So I feel like I'd have to just get excited no matter what. But if you had, just a general, I guess coordinator, Aaron Glenn's the guy. He knows what it's like to be a Jet. He's been here before. He would be the one guy, but like Ben Johnson's never taken this job, so I'm not going to be serious with it. What are your thoughts on those names? What are your thoughts on Rex?
I like it. Honestly, I'd be excited about Vrabel. It's a very good point on the ties to Belichick, but I do think that this job would be enticing for Vrabel. I do, regardless of if it's Tyrod or if it's Aaron Rodgers. I feel like a guy like that, with a chance to have a bridge quarterback, be competitive in year one, with a chance to kind of rebuild on the fly and tailor this to how we want it, that would be an enticing thing for not just Vrabel, but any head coach.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Aaron Glenn, yes, I'd be excited. Obviously, I love Aaron Glenn. That was the first jersey I had when the Jets switched unis back in '98. So always Aaron Glenn will have a place in my heart. So I would like that. I really don't care as much anymore about the offensive versus defensive mind. Like that doesn't matter as much to me. I just want someone who's going to be a leader of men that can get the most out of his players. And I think this will segue into the like caring about being a New York Jet that Rex brings. Like I think Aaron Glenn would have that. Yeah. I think Joe Caporoso made a good point on his 12-pack was like, regardless of what you think of Rex, like you can't argue that the guy cares and that he's
He
passionate
does.
about it and that
He does.
being a New York Jet means something to him and that he still, and that's kind of like the crazy thing about really like these former players that go to the media, you know, they even only had small stints as Jets, but it's still home to them. Damian Woody, Bart Scott, Willie Colon, like
it
all these guys, Rex, like
yeah.
it's important to them and they care. And even though they spent time elsewhere, like that's important to them. And I think we've lost that. So as crazy as the Rex idea sounds, like there's still part of me that's like, you know what? Fuck it, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like let's get back and let's figure it out. You're right. I don't think that Ben Johnson's going to come here. I think the interesting part about Aaron Glenn would be obviously the relationships that he's made in Detroit and who he might pull from that Lions offensive staff to bring with him as an OC. That also leads me to Brian Flores. 3 years ago, I would have said hell no, but I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's a guy that got the most out of his players. I think the time that he spent in Pittsburgh under Mike Tomlin is probably the most attractive thing about him, and the job he's doing in Minnesota right now obviously is an attestament to that, because that's something I think Flores would be a home run, and he's someone that I would absolutely get excited about. So really those are, I think, my top four. Bobby Slowick, like I think we're starting to see that kind of crumble in Houston. I mean, who else are the candidates out there? Like, I don't know if there's anyone else really out there that would excite me, but I'd say it's Vrabel, Aaron Glenn, Brian Flores, and who's the other one we mentioned?
Rex?
No, not Rex. There was another one in there. Aaron Glenn, Brian Flores, Mike Vrabel, and
I can't remember, but
either way.
Nonetheless, but you know who's the dream? And I think we're slowly getting to a closer possibility. Kyle Shanahan, because he's under a lot of heat. Oh my God, I would drive him across the country.
Oh,
I would. And I will say, I do have some Niner fans in my life. You know, my wife's whole family likes them, and I have a couple coworkers that like them, and they definitely are getting tired of him. But I'm like, do you understand what I'm dealing with? He would make this offense amazing. Like this, like we would just have an offense. It'd be so fun. That's really why I lean towards offense, because yes, a defensive coordinator could hire a good staff, but if they hire a good offensive coordinator, that guy's probably going to get poached and become a head coach. Whereas if you have the offensive mind as the head coach, the offense, may have different offensive coordinators, but it's always going to be under their tutelage.
True.
So that's kind of why I lean on it. But I think at this point, I lean more towards guys with experience over guys who don't. So
agreed.
And Aaron Glenn would really be the one realistic guy, because I don't think, like I said, I don't think Ben Johnson would take this job, that I would want just because of his ties to the organization. I think he's just like a leader of men. I read a good piece on him. I think it was in ESPN the other day. It was really good. I don't know if you caught that. I think it was on their Anscaped, like that. It's like a different publication within them. Check that out if you haven't seen it. It's just like a good piece on him and showing that he's really just like everything that players love, you know, going to war for. So look, a lot of time, 6 games. We have Geno Smith coming back to town. I love Geno. Always support him. If he cooks us, he cooks us. But quickly, do the Jets win this game? Because
No.
I say no. No. I think Geno's going to carve us up for like 303 touchdowns.
Yeah, I just don't think their defense can stop anybody. I still can't understand why anybody even throws the ball against us. I think that any team can come in and run at will. So trying to stop Kenneth Walker and trying to contain JSN, and I don't know what's the health status of DK Metcalf right now. Is he back?
I think he's back. I was watching that Cardinal game because they were playing him yesterday.
Yeah.
But I have Kyler Murray, Connor, and McBride in fantasy, so I had a close eye on it in the multi-view.
Yeah.
They're a good team, and I think Mike Donald's a good coach, and that's probably a guy that we'd love to have right now.
Agreed.
So
agreed. Yeah, I don't see any way in which the Jets win this game. I think historically they've been, with this coaching regime, they've been bad coming off of breaks, coming off of mini buys and or bye weeks. I just don't see any way in which they win. Hopefully they make it fun and interesting. I can't, as a fan, root for losses anymore. I really don't care about draft picks. I want to root for a win. I want to see them win. I want to see the players that I like do well. So hopefully Brees and Garrett get a tutty. Maybe Sauce gets a pick. Maybe the Jets just get a turnover. Maybe that could be something that we could actually see happen.
I didn't know that was allowed for the team that we were.
Yeah, it's insane to me. But I don't see any world in which they win this game. Even Seattle coming over for a 1:00 game from the West Coast, Jets coming off a bye. It's still not going to happen.
Be funny if Geno missed the team meeting or something like that. It's not going to happen. But it's kind of sad that we're not doing our keys to the game and a real pick where we're actually talking ourselves into a win if it's not likely, or, you know, it's just we're so apathetic. But we appreciate everybody who tuned in, whether it was on Twitter, whether it was on YouTube, on the Badlands channel, or even if you're listening to the audio when it is available. We do appreciate that. We will try to get some more streams in. We've been both really busy, and we apologize to the people who've been waiting for us to, put our opinions and takes into audio or video form. So make sure to subscribe on, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or even Google Play to Turn on the Jets Live. You just search it, you'll see it. Make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/@BadlandsTOJ. You get this, you get snippets of Badlands. You'll get, random little nuggets, sometimes a full episode when Joe is feeling very generous, especially now that we're in the holiday season. And if you have not already, make sure to subscribe to Badlands on Patreon. Best premium Jets content. Honestly, the Discord itself pays the bills for me. It's where I get a lot of my takes out there, especially the ones that are not safe, for Twitter, just because I care about my, my image and stuff like that and my job and everything like that. But yeah, we appreciate everybody, and we will do a live stream soon.